Hello and welcome back to Plot Hole Productions, here once again on the Uncensored Nerds Network with our third episode of The Breakdown. I'm your host, Chris Sambrook.
And I'm Nate Slater. And in this episode of The Breakdown, we will be reviewing the second half of Season 3 of
Part 2. All right, so let's jump right into it. Just like last time, we're going to go through 4 episodes. This one will be 5 through 8. Before we do, we're going to read a quick synopsis directly from Wikipedia of each episode. Then we will discuss. So, Nate, would you like to start us off?
Yes, and first and foremost, folks, spoilers ahead. So we're going to start with Episode 5. This was supposed to be easy. After Mark suggests that he and Eve get their own apartment, she offers Invincible's services to a supervillain prison. Debbie later sends the couple out in search of Oliver, whom they discover has befriended 2 children while defending them from bullies. Meanwhile, Titan is pressured by Mr. Liu, a fellow crime boss and the leader of a criminal organization called The Order, into breaking out Multipol or Liu will kill his family. Titan manipulates Liu into helping him before they attack the prison holding Multipol. While fighting Mark and Eve, Multipol escapes while Titan's henchman, Isotope, frees Machine Head, who shoots Liu. Afterwards, Mark and Eve decide to take their relationship at a slow pace. Machine Head assumes control of the Order and grants Titan his autonomy, unaware that Liu has survived. So, this was an interesting episode because it kind of goes back to some players that we haven't really seen much of since Season 1. I mean, we did get maybe a few glimpses of these characters in Season 2, but we kind of left them mainly in Season 1, which that was interesting because they're letting us know these people still exist in this universe.
Right.
I did like that they brought back Machine Head because I actually really liked him. And if you didn't know, if you ever saw, what was that show with Bruce Campbell back in the day? What's the name of that show?
Burn Notice?
Burn Notice, yeah, that one there. It's the main guy from Burn Notice, and I really thought that
Okay.
guy. I thought that guy was boring. Like he had, he
Yeah.
had just one look, like one stone cold face, so you can't really act. That's what I always thought of him. I only watched the show for Bruce Campbell,
Who does make an appearance later on.
Yeah, so if you guys are Bruce Campbell fans, we'll get into that later. But he's coming to Invincible. That's all we got to say.
But yeah, no, this was a good transition from the first half, where we're still having Mark and Eve struggle with their nonsense. Although I do like, for money, they decided to kind of sell their services out to the supervillain prison, which, you know, it kind of leaves room for hijinks without getting too serious into the story, you know?
Yeah.
It also allows us to take a glimpse of the other supervillains that are there, or, you know, maybe people we've forgotten about, which is kind of what they did.
Yeah, I mean, and watching it when we see Mr. Liu, I honestly didn't think he was going to be that much of a threat. And he kind of wasn't, but I mean, he was more so a threat to, you know, the lesser super villains, if you want to put it that
people
way.
of the Order, they're on the lower tier.
Yeah. And one thing I thought was funny is when we see the Order, there's actually, I sent it to you on Instagram. I don't know if you watched it, but it shows the Order, and you see War Woman's assistant that we saw in episode 1. She is now a part of the Order, so I guess she is now a supervillain. And I don't know if she has the same powers as War Woman, which she was basically, like, my opinion, the Wonder Woman of the Guardians of the Globe. I guess you could say, like, the second most powerful of them. You know, number one being
her assistant
immortal.
doesn't necessarily have to have powers. Her value could also be the knowledge of how the Guardians of the Globe work.
True. That's if she knows really how they work, but more than likely she does if she was working with, you know, War Woman. But I thought that was kind of cool, which we'll probably see her come into play in a future season. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Okay, so the thing I really wanted to get into was how absolutely wrong I was on the last episode of how Oliver is.
Yeah.
Because as we saw, Oliver is sneaking out at night. And of course, at first, we're thinking, oh, it's got to be something devious. And then you see him with a couple of kids just horsing around. And instantly, you're like, oh, man, he's a loose cannon. Either these kids are going to die with, just crazy overpowered horseplay, or something's going to happen outside of that. And then, of course, we see the bullies show up, and how he handled the bullies was so left turn. Had no idea it was coming. It was great. He just decided to humiliate them instead, and that alone shows a lot of character development without actually being there for the development.
And that being said, that does not mean that he can still make a wrong turn at any point.
Right. He does have to be watched.
Yeah,
he has to be supervised heavily.
Which it's still lucky that Invincible and Eve were there just in case.
Yeah.
But I did think the worst was gonna come out of that, and I was hoping it wouldn't, and thankfully, it didn't, because that could have been bad. But then again, it would probably slow down the episode in general. I mean, that scene in general slowed it down, but it wanted to show us that Oliver does take what his mom and Mark say to heart, at least a little bit.
Right. All right. So Titan, obviously, he's been changing the neighborhood, making things look the way he sees fit. I think he does discuss how there's no real criminal activity in the area anymore. He's trying to go legit. Obviously, there's still drug dealings and such, as the business, does still need to be thriving in order for it to be in control. But yeah, so when Mr. Liu, comes down on him, obviously we saw a little bit of it before, and he started to panic a bit. Oh, now I got to actually do something about this. I do like how he switches things around, decides to take out Mr. Liu, even though it is short-lived. It is, I mean, it works on a couple of levels. It shows us Mr. Liu's power. It shows us how far Titan's willing to go. I mean, he was willing to go as far as getting Machine Head out of prison. Someone he sent there in the first place.
Yep.
Just to have his semblance of peace. So, how that's going to translate with, Viltrumite army coming, I don't know how useful he's going to be, but it is nice to see at least he is aiming for something a little more pure than just, control of drug money.
Yeah, I mean, he is more of a, what would you call it, a villain or a crime lord that has a sense of,
Duty.
People's lives and duty.
Yeah.
He wants to make his money without disturbing the peace, I guess you could say.
Yeah, his peace, right?
Yeah.
It's all on his terms.
And he even, tries to get Invincible to kind of see his way, and hero's a hero, man.
Yeah. Yeah. He does manipulate Invincible quite a bit, and it's actually funny, especially with those moments, because he can't fly, so Invincible has to carry him around.
Which is funny.
It breaks the tension, but he's also there going, what do you want me to do? I can't fly. So he's more than brawn. He's got a lot of brain too. He's got a lot of heart. We don't see too much of him in this season, so this episode is kind of his peak thing. But it does it serves him well, and hopefully when we see him in the future, he has a lot more to offer.
And still, an unanswered question that I was hoping we'd get a somewhat of an answer of in this episode, seeing that Machine Head was back, which we didn't, is how did he get a hold of Battle Beast? That's what I want to know. Like,
Yeah,
we still don't have that answer. It might come now that Machine Head is out, though. That might come in handy later
yeah,
if you
that's
think
fair.
about it.
Because
Uh,
Battle Beast is out there floating somewhere,
in the depths of space.
covered
And,
in Viltrumite blood.
and the other thing we saw during the whole fight at the prison is, Eve, did her best to, keep all the prisoners inside. But if you paid attention, one multi-pole escaped.
So yeah, no, that worked out perfectly. The just Multipol's attempt to escape, where he's like constantly growing himself and letting them just be mowed down, like that's a commitment, right? Knowing that you're going to be absolutely obliterated so that, a clone or different form of you can get out. And in so many different ways. It wasn't just the superheroes taking them down, it was him escaping the room in the first place by, creating too much pressure to blow the door down and with all the bodies, popping up all at once.
And if he was like, I guess the main version of him was holding as hard as he could onto, like, holding himself up in that window so he wouldn't die too.
Right. I mean, I don't know what the limits to his power is. How, like, if he has a certain time frame, that he can keep exerting all that energy, or if it's, he just has a certain amount that he can spit out. But that by the time he left, he didn't seem perturbed in any way. He didn't seem exhausted. Like he could have kept going if he needed to after all that we saw and all that died.
Yeah, and the one thing that we got at the end too is, we thought Mr. Liu was dead, and then lo and behold, nope, he's, well, at least the dragon form of him is still alive somehow.
Yeah.
So that will come back into play later. I think what's gonna happen, I won't go too deep into it yet, but I think that, you know, the villains are gonna play a part in helping stop, the Viltrumites.
I believe so too. I mean, what's the point of being a villain on Earth and wanting your way if Earth is going to just be destroyed?
Yeah, it's gonna come down to everybody, heroes and villains in the gray area are gonna have to team up to do what they can. But I liked the episode. Some of it felt kind of filler, but other than that, I thought it was a decent episode.
Yeah, I feel like just the concept of them doing the prison work was kind of more of a side joke, set up for hijinks to kind of let time fly, but also give them a means to, make money and see some new and old villains.
Yeah, it was definitely a setup episode or a reminder episode that these characters are important for a reason. We will see them again, the ones who are still alive anyway.
Right, exactly. Um, so um, we are going to jump now onto episode 6, titled All I Can Say Is I'm Sorry. This one, a little weird one, but I'm just going to jump right into it. Having witnessed his sister and niece's death during Mark and Nolan's fight in Chicago, GDA scientist Scott Duvall steals advanced biocapacitors to augment his own ability to convert kinetic energy into electrical power and publicly challenges Mark. Wishing to take the night off to celebrate William's birthday, Mark ignores Scott while Shapesmith answers his challenge. Scott defeats Shapesmith and flees to his wife Becky and son Jack, fearing GDA retaliation, as Rudy works with Monster Girl to stop her powers from de-aging her body when she uses them. Ray confesses to Rex that she plans to retire from superhero work, which he accepts before they kiss. Amidst a memorial for Chicago's massacre, Scott takes the name Powerplex and tries to lure out Mark once again, but is defeated and captured by Eve. Nonetheless, Scott escapes and returns to Becky, who suggests he stages her and Jack's kidnapping and use them as bait. Mark attempts to talk Scott down, but Scott accidentally kills his family while fighting Mark. After being taken into GDA custody, Scott vows revenge on Mark. Elsewhere, Angstrom gathers several of Mark's multiversal variants. So this one, I will say, I wasn't a huge fan of. I'm
I
not
know
a
you weren't.
huge fan of Scott Duvall's Powerplex. He is overly stupid. Uh, just like to the point where you're like, how did he even get vetted to work for the GDA? Like, there's a level of sense that you should have working with, high level secret stuff. I mean, let's not forget the GDA is in the uh, the Pentagon. Like, there are levels of security you have to go through. Like, there's a level of understanding of you're working with some secret stuff that you should have a mental capacity to, think.
Think, Mark. Think.
Right, exactly. It just so obviously this was a throwback to the first season
Yep.
with Mark did, as we saw, try to save his sister and niece. They were the ones in the falling building that when he grabs them, he thinks he's doing a good job. He thinks he's saving them. But once everything falls down, he's holding just arms,
Yeah. And
dismembered arms.
it's very sad. And Mark, just like everybody else from that day, and probably more so Mark, because he saw so many more people die like firsthand, and he couldn't save them. He's got to live with, like, what do they call that? Survivor's grief or something like that.
Yeah, survivor's guilt.
Yeah, there we go.
And yeah, no, we saw it took a huge mental toll on him, not just in the moment, but afterwards too. And then, it cuts back to the GDA scientist, Scott Duvall. Obviously, he kind of witnessed it from afar. We do get to see his character in the moment, in the time. I can't remember what he left for. He left for something at the store, and then he's running back, and he sees everything that's happening as the building collapses, and he sees Invincible standing there. So he just pins it all on him. Obviously, time has gone by where there has been media coverage explaining the situation. I'm sure the GDA was well on board with, that wasn't Mark, that was Nolan.
Yeah.
So you would think that there were discussions, notices, memos passed around in the GDA on top of all the stuff that was seen in the media. So I don't know why he just, I mean, sure, let's just say for the moment, yes, he had said that he had it set that it was Invincible who did this and it was his fault. He could have saved them, but he didn't. Okay. So he, steals the developed technology to push his own powers, which is very, very Black Panther. As
Yeah.
he takes hits, he stores up that energy where he can then use it.
Yeah, the kinetic energy.
Yeah, if he doesn't straight up get killed, then he, in a sense, is pretty unbeatable.
Yeah. Just
So,
keep taking a beating and then throw it back out at the people hitting you.
right, exactly. So as, a supervillain, that is obviously a crazy power to have. But as a character who apparently can't see reason anywhere, obviously his wife is a complete idiot too, a complete jerk.
Yeah. Takes one to be with one, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Who let's just stop for a moment and point out that Becky Duvall was played by Kate Mara, who previously was Invisible Woman.
Yep.
And then we've got, of course, Aaron Paul from the Breaking Bad series as Jesse Pinkman, as he's most commonly remembered. Which I will say, I don't mind him as an actor, but as a voice actor, it definitely seemed like he was winging it.
Huh.
Because he didn't provide that. I feel like he's not used to being in a booth, with a mic in front of him.
It's funny because when I heard his acting, it literally sounded like Hayden Christensen acting as Anakin. That's all
Yeah,
I could hear is Hayden Christensen when he was talking. My empire.
yeah. It was definitely off. Like you could feel it right away before you really even see it. And, you know, it's a difficult medium, I guess, for some actors to, be taken away from the stage, uh, which, whatever. It wasn't great. And it kind of sucks that he wasn't a one off character. He does come back beyond this episode and possibly will continue to do so. Um, but yeah, so he keeps pushing Mark. Eventually, his wife comes up with the idiotic idea to pretend that he kidnapped her and their son, which their son the entire time just wants to be loved by the parents, and
Yeah.
they keep pushing him aside to focus on their vendetta. And then, of course, they have the seriously disturbing moment, and you saw it coming. You knew it was going to happen. He starts building up all of his power. They're right behind him, and he unleashes and looks back, and they're burned to a crisp.
Yeah, I will say, uh, like we said before, this is a spoiler alert, but if you're a parent, you might not take it, that well. I know Chris was a parent and he was kind of disgusted by it a bit.
It's just the idiocy. Like, there is a parental instinct that you have of just protecting those you love. It doesn't even have to be a child, it could also be your wife or loved ones in general. Knowing that they were right behind you, that's the protective mode. That's fine. But if you have any control over your power, you push it in front of you. You don't just go crazy, and you always have it in the back of your mind where the people you're protecting are.
And it just showed how much he didn't care. He just cared about himself and his own.
Agenda. Yeah.
You can't even call it really an agenda. I mean, yeah, revenge, but he's very self-centered and self-serving, and it cost him.
Yeah. So now not only did he lose his sister and his niece, he lost his wife and his son, and yet even at the end of it, he still blames Mark like an absolute idiot. And Mark, the whole time he was there, would not fight him, would just keep saying, "I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do but say I'm sorry. I do remember them. I do remember what it did to me. And I'm sorry that it happened. I'm sorry that it was my dad. But there's nothing more I can do than say I'm sorry." And then he fries his family like an idiot. Yeah, it was a downer, but then of course they do hit us with Angstrom,
Yep.
standing there with the multiverse variants of Mark, which, as soon as we saw that, we were like, "Oh God,
This
here
is
we go."
like, but here's the thing that bothered me is, I think we talked about it in the last season or whatever. Like you said, Viltrumites or whatever from all over. And this, it still makes no sense. You hate this guy so much. If you hated him so much, why would you even bother? I mean, yeah, I get it, the enemy of the enemy kind of thing, whatever.
It
All
still
these
does, yeah,
bad
it still
versions.
doesn't make much sense. I mean,
No.
even one of the Marks, when they were all gathered together, was saying, "Look, we didn't all hate Mom. I'm here for Mom."
Yeah.
He wasn't there because he hates Mark. He was there for a different agenda. Uh, all of them, first of all of them showing up and agreeing to do that doesn't make much sense. Uh, I feel like almost all of them would just destroy Angstrom as soon as they saw him, or at least
Uh,
attempt to.
I mean, I have a feeling they did. Like, they all freaking thought that that's what's going to happen. But, you know, that's kind of like the cliffhanger there for that. You said you didn't really like this episode. I thought it was okay, but I also felt Powerplex is just stupid. Not stupid in the sense like his powers are dumb. His powers are great. Just his whole story motivation is very I feel like
idiotic.
idiotic, and we've kind of seen that happen before, but they actually went to great lengths to show us, which is in a sense is good to show, as a lesson as for people, don't try and hold on to something that you had no control over. Try to, you know, I guess put yourself in other people's shoes and understand that, Mark did what he did. He tried and it was the best he could do. He can't save everybody, especially from his dad at the time. His dad's the strongest person on the planet, or was. Now he's gone for now. But like I said, you didn't like it. I thought it was okay. I do agree it could have been way better.
It
But
definitely wasn't the strongest episode
yeah,
they've had. In fact, I would put it on the worst, mainly down to the idiocy of the character, but also the poorly dub, the poor dub of the voice acting of him in
yeah,
general. I would drop it down to worst episode so far.
yeah. I will say I like it because it definitely got its point across.
It did. It did. It didn't. You didn't feel the weight of what it could have been because a lot of it was hit with idiocy.
Yes. And they made it so sure that this guy has no redemption coming. I mean, they might try later. It's going to be dumb. He might sacrifice himself for some
No, I feel
realization,
like if
but
he does try to redeem himself, it'll just be a little too late. Like even if they go all out and have this super tragic, death scene planned for him, I still can't get over what he's done so far, so it will just fall short in my eyes. That being said, let's
yep.
move on over to episode 7.
Oh, this is like I was going to say, a good transition goes right into this episode, and we want to talk about sacrifices. So this is the synopsis for episode 7, What Have I Done? Angstrom sends his invincible variants to destroy Earth and tarnish Mark's image. The GDA, the Guardians, and Earth's heroes are overwhelmed and suffer heavy losses. Eve is incapacitated. Rex sacrifices himself to save Rudy, Monster Girl, and Bulletproof. Darkwing 2 is presumed dead, and the Immortal, Kate, Samson, and Shapesmith are all wounded. Mark overpowers and nearly kills Angstrom, but he escapes to the technicians, advanced cybernetic surgeons who previously healed him. Angstrom orders them to fix his wounds, but they refuse, demanding he submit to their will. In the aftermath of Angstrom's attack, an aged Viltrumite envoy named Conquest arrives to survey Mark's subjugation of Earth for the Viltrumite Empire and is disappointed by his lack of progress. Devastated by the destruction and deaths directed at him, Mark charges at Conquest to vent his rage.
Ah, yes, the introduction to Conquest. So before we get into that, let's talk about the devastation caused by all the Invincibles.
Oh boy. I mean,
Yeah, we were just talking in the last episode we did here about how much we started to like Rex, how he's turned around as a character, and I think I even might have said that I feel like they're planning on killing him off because of his turnaround. It's just a classic writer's move, right? Where they bring in a character that no one's supposed to like, make him go through this transformation. You start to really like the person. You like to see him around, want to see where they are planning on going, taking the story, and then
done. Yeah, I mean, we both kind of saw that coming, and it sucks because I really, really liked Rex, but the way he goes out is boss.
yes, it is. So one of the Invincibles makes his way to, was it Titan Tower, or what do they call that place?
Guardians of the Globe headquarters.
No, because they left the Guardians, remember?
Oh, Teen Team's headquarters.
Teen Team's headquarters. And takes them on. Obviously, there's a bit of fighting going on. The Invincible, the mock Invincible, beats them down pretty fast. So Rex tries to have everyone evacuate and is constantly throwing things at him that explode. Seems to be doing something, at least pushing him back, preventing him from attacking. And of course, that Invincible doesn't see Rex as a threat at all
Yeah.
and underestimates what's coming. Rex obviously tried everything, threw everything at him, run out of all of his equipment, and as his one final move to make sure everyone escapes, he blows up his skeleton.
Well, I mean, first he tries to blow up the whole entire floor, and he thought that
Yeah,
worked. It didn't.
no, but blowing up his skeleton definitely worked, and it's crazy to think that Rex could have possibly killed the Invincible we know. To have that kind of power to actually stop Invincible.
Yeah, but
Um,
his whole thing was not to kill himself unless
yeah,
he had to, and he went out in a heroic way. And R.I.P. Rex, you will be missed.
yes, yep. And then I think immediately after that, it cuts to the Guardians of the Globe, where we get to see the Guardians take him on. Obviously, not Invincible, the Immortal doesn't have much to worry about, but he's still not that strong. He may be the strongest one there, but everyone I think there gets wounded.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
he dies, I believe. Um,
Darkwing 2, obviously
yeah,
presumed dead, dragging the one Invincible into the Dark Realm.
yeah. Which I mean, I think I can't remember, but I think by the end of the episode we see, or maybe we don't.
No.
Well, I mean, no, because they even say they presume him dead because they haven't seen him, so
Yeah.
he's probably in there dead because
He
the
may
other
be in there
Invincible killed him
dead.
in there.
There's obviously, he's one of those backups that writers like to use, right? If he's not confirmed dead, he's not dead until he's confirmed dead.
Yeah. In fact, it might come into play later. Let's say more Viltrumites show up, and he comes out at the right time, and they think that's the Invincible they need to kill, and they
Yeah.
kill him, and they think he's dead.
There are ways that they can play with it. We'll see what actually happens. But as of right now, he is presumed dead. Immortal, obviously. He got dismembered.
Yeah, he got
Uh,
dismembered. They did bring him back by the end of the episode. He's immortal. As long as you
yeah.
can put all his body parts back together, he'll heal.
And I don't know what's up with Kate. You think she would have learned her lesson and kept like multiple clones in like different corners of the earth, just to ensure that she lives.
I mean, she did live though. They showed her at the
She did
funeral.
live.
Yeah.
She did live, but she got the beat down too. I think everyone left there wounded.
Yeah, I think what it say what Samson and Kate, yeah, and Mortal, yeah, they were all wounded. Even Shapesmith, like he couldn't feel the bottom half of his body. He was being all
Yeah,
comedic relief right there. I thought that was pretty funny. I'm like, I like this guy. I don't want him to die.
yeah. The only thing I didn't like about this episode is how fast we went through the Invincibles, because obviously there was a lot that were killed in general by being out there with other superheroes fighting them and such, because not all Invincibles are made equal.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then we have kind of a main team towards the end that pop up that clearly are the stronger ones. Um, and they show up, and Angstrom pops up telling them, "Hey, look, we need to get Invincible. Let's hunt him down." And they're like, "No, no, not until we get what we were promised." Each of them were promised a little something different. Um, at which point they start to turn on him, and he decides to send them to that desolate planet.
Which is funny because that storyline could also come back too. Because remember, that's the same place where Mark was stranded, and the other Eve, the other Rex were all there. So that's gonna be interesting too.
Yes, we also know that they have, a time machine. That's what they used to get Mark back because it was the future of that Earth.
Yeah.
That being said, um, that future could have changed. So,
Possibly.
because Mark went back, I mean, just the fact that Mark has been with Eve means that Eve might have changed, unless they're doing it, that the timeline still exists. even though it was. I don't know how they plan to do
Yeah, I
that.
think there's like 7 different. I think it's either 3 or 7 different types of time displacement for time travel and stuff like that. So we won't get into that because that's a whole nother video on
Yeah,
its own.
because we also have that whole timeline where Immortal is in charge, and Mark had left the planet, so there was that. So yeah, that is up for speculation, I guess. At this point, there's a possibility they get back, or are used somehow to bring them back in some manner.
I mean, either way, I mean, that could be what the cliffhanger's for, because let's say the Viltrumites do come to the planet in full force, they're going to need all the help they can get, even if some bad Invincibles come down. And that could be the same for the Viltrumites. Maybe these bad Invincibles come and they join the Viltrumites. So it
Yeah,
could be like a whole free-for-all, like, of
yeah,
craziness.
we also have to look at Angstrom. He
Yeah,
hates Invincible, yes, but is he going to let the Viltrumite army take over Earth just to get at Invincible?
that's the other thing. Because right now, by the end of this episode, he is stuck trying to do what the technicians want him to do. So who knows? He might just say, fuck
Time to
it.
team up.
Time to
Yeah.
team up. I'm sorry. You killed me. Pretty much, you killed me once. Your variants could have killed me again. Help me. Redeem yourself. Whatever. And why would Mark do that? Because if he doesn't, the planet's destroyed by a whole bunch of Viltrumites. But
Yeah, because
that's all
why would
speculation.
Angstrom want the planet destroyed? The whole point of him at the very beginning is that all the other Earths were always, taken over or destroyed or whatever, and almost all of them had evil marks, and then all of a sudden he finds the one mark that isn't evil, has a personal vendetta after something that went wrong, and he again blames Mark. Everyone just blames Mark, even when they have no clue of what the real reason is.
He's another Powerplex.
Yeah,
He's a more complex Powerplex.
yeah.
But
I mean, I understand the whole concept of all the others got fused into him, so he has the pain of A, the incident that occurred, and B, all the memories of all of them at once. Um, But when it comes down to it, when all the Viltrumites are invading Earth, like, I'm pretty sure that he's going to want to save the Earth. Otherwise, he said it was the last Earth. He said it was the last one that wasn't taken over.
yeah, so is he gonna do that? I mean, he is. Come on, no.
He's got to. That or, I mean, he did go out of his way to get other Invincibles to fight this Mark. So I don't know.
Yeah, thinking about it more, it's like, what's the point, dude? This guy's just because. Okay, at this point, he's doing it because he feels that this Invincible tried to kill him. We get it, but once again, Mark said, "I'm sorry," And this is the other thing too. This whole time, Mark thinks he killed Angstrom, and he's been living with this grief. And now that he knows he's alive, he even, later on in the next episode, he pretty much says, if someone's gonna try and take over my planet, they're done.
Yep.
In a sense, almost Angstrom is turning him into the evil Mark. I don't see it's
Yeah.
gonna go down that way, but it definitely gives an inkling that that could be the route he goes.
Yep. So with him running away, we have our new enemy popping up, Conquest. He arrives. He very right at the tail end of the episode, and just mocks Mark. Mark is peed off and just charges at him.
And then
And
it ends, and it goes right into episode 8. Chris, take
yeah,
it away.
I shall do the honors. Episode 8. I thought you'd never shut up. As Mark and Conquest engage in combat, Oliver and Eve attempt to intervene but are incapacitated. Nonetheless, Eve temporarily releases her mental blocks, allowing her to reconstruct her body and burn Conquest's skin off before Mark defeats him and seemingly kills him. Mark awakens in the hospital, where Debbie apologizes for bringing him into this world, though Mark says that he does not blame her. At Rex's funeral, Rudy changes his name to Rex to honor him. As the world rebuilds, Livingston builds up an army of sequoid uh, possessed humans. A group of aliens find Battle Beast, and the technicians begin to use Angstrom to claim a new world. Cecil reveals to Donald that he's captured the Comatose Conquest and placed him in an underground prison intended to interrogate him about the Viltrum Empire. Mark tells Oliver that he was right to kill people, promising to do so to anyone who threatens their family. Meanwhile, Darkblood meets with a demon overlord to help reinstate him as Hell's ruler by exploiting a powerful being on Earth. So yes, we're getting back into Darkblood, who we haven't seen since season 1, I believe, right? I don't think
I
we've
don't
seen
know if
season
I
2.
mean his name is like I think it's Detective Darkblood, but I don't know if it's the same guy. It could be, all their last names are Darkblood. I don't know, but I'm assuming it's the same guy. Maybe.
But yeah, so let's start off with Mark and Conquest fighting. Now, the majority of the episode was them just fighting it out. There was a
And
lot of back and forth.
and it was amazing. Hands down, the one of the best episodes of Invincible ever. And I was just like, I need
Especially
more of this.
especially with the voice acting basically being Glenn versus Negan.
Part 2, and Glenn comes out on top.
So for those that don't know, Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays Conquest. Hell of an actor, hell of a voice actor. Hell of a voice, period. I mean, we've got him in The Boys now, too. He is really taking up the roles and giving us memorable characters. Conquest, I mean, for only being in this one full episode and then, just a tiny little bit
Cliffhanger.
of the last episode, he's really kind of made his mark. We've already learned that most other Viltrumites fear him.
Yeah, and the thing that's kind of funny is like you see him as this powerhouse, but deep down inside you see that like you wouldn't think it, but he is kind of hurt that like they just see him as a weapon. They don't see him as a living being.
I mean, in all fairness, all of them see themselves as just a living weapon,
Yeah.
something that can, push forward and strengthen the Viltrum Empire. That is their whole sense of purpose. But yes, they do at least mingle amongst each other, talk amongst each other. They do eventually mate. So with him talking about how he's lonely because no one else will talk to him, everyone's too afraid to talk to him. They keep their distance from him and just send him off to the furthest reaches to handle any, uprisings or anything like that. He had the express order of come to Earth and make sure that the planet bows to the Viltrum Empire with any means necessary.
And
And
he
yeah,
tried to go with any means necessary, and you know what? He almost succeeded.
honestly, he would have succeeded if he just went all out right from the beginning. And I think that's the issue with most villains, right? They
Yeah.
like to talk.
Yeah, well, especially him. I think he was clearly there to have fun.
Yes.
And he had his fun, but because he dragged it out for too long, he like every normal villain, he he messed up.
Yeah, and I will say there were a lot of moments that they clearly surprised him. I mean, there was the fact that, he could actually fight back. Obviously, he wasn't surprised in the sense that he thought he was going to be beat. He definitely thought he was going to win, but he did enjoy it. And he said he was surprised that there was even a resistance. Um, and then, he gets beat down, and then Oliver and Eve show up. He takes them down damn near instantly.
Yeah, I
Uh,
felt bad for Oliver. Oliver was like so close to being ripped in half.
yes, he was. And he could have done it. He was just toying with him to get Mark to come at him. So, maybe he never expressly intended to rip him in half, but he definitely intended to do damage. And yeah, that Oliver, I mean, we don't know his extent of healing yet. Um, and I mean, yes, uh, there are plenty of moments where we see Invincible take severe damage and, pops right back up in the next episode. But usually there's like a sense of, several weeks or months have passed where he was in the hospital, this, that, or the other. So, maybe we'll see where Oliver falls, um, continuing after this.
Yeah,
Um,
and even Eve, like I thought Eve really wasn't gonna stand a chance at all, and she really didn't. She did her little like power armor type move, and the one thing I did like is that she started thinking outside the box. She started, she can manipulate anything that isn't, I guess, human matter with
yeah,
her limiters on, and she's just like, oh, it's getting kind of hard for you to move, isn't it? That's because I made the air more dense, and then she just kept doing
yeah.
that. But you could
Th-
definitely see it was taking a toll on her too,
yeah.
using that much power.
It wasn't just that. Like one of the balls she encased him in was filled with water
Yeah,
too. Changing up, seeing how he was able to. Because you don't know how this random alien from another planet shows up. How can it? Maybe he can't swim. Maybe he can't breathe underwater. I mean, they can breathe in space, but you would assume they can breathe underwater. There's
yeah,
actually oxygen in there than there is in sky in space. But yeah, so yes, she gets effed up pretty fast, and then of course her mental blocks are released from that, and she reconstructs her body. That was pretty epic. It looked so cool, and thank God that they did that kind of mini episode. What was it between season 1 and 2?
the Adam Eve special.
Yeah, so that we had an idea of the fact that she had blocks put on and why, and we also learned that her parents weren't her real parents, but they were the ones that took her in.
Yeah, and her adopted father is still a dick.
Yes, yes, he is, uh,
uh,
but he cares for her, and we do get a sense of that.
yeah, and I like she's the key. Realistically, she's the key to winning this fight, and it's kind of like right now I consider that like her Super Saiyan powers. Like only right now she can only do it in desperate situations, but when she's able to control it, there's gonna be hell to pay. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and so getting beyond that, eventually Mark does beat him down. In fact, smashes his whole face in with headbutts.
Yeah, I mean he's got a hard friggin' head, that guy.
Yeah,
Well, both of them, but you know,
well, one harder than the other,
yeah.
clearly.
And Mark was like like Conquest fucking snapped his leg in half. They punched each other's like. Well, Conquest had a robotic arm, but Mark destroyed his freaking hand, and then I think he destroyed his other hand too at one point. I can't remember. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think he did because he had to use his head.
yeah. Well, he held him down as he was headbutting him over and over
Yeah,
until you got to see a little bit of brains in there.
yeah, and thank God for Adam Eve helping when she did. Otherwise, they would have been done.
Yep. So with the conquest fight over, there was still a bit to happen. Even though it was shorter time span, a lot does happen. We see plenty of scenes of a lot of things going on. Obviously, first it goes to the hospital, seeing them recovering,
Yeah,
and then we go to Rex's funeral.
yeah. Which it kind of sucks because the show is a part of the greater uh, Image universe, which in the comics they include like Spawn and Savage Dragon, a couple other characters they have from other properties, but they just stuck with Invincible in this. I
Well,
mean,
that's not entirely true. They also had Britt, who has his own comic line too, who does show up briefly. I
yeah,
believe he's played by Jonathan Banks, who was also in Breaking Bad. So we'll see. We'll
I mean,
see where
the-
he could be bringing in other people from other universes
Yeah.
too.
I mean, there's talk. We'll get to it a little bit towards the end here, but um, yeah, we have that whole funeral, and it is touching, and we get to see, Rudy kind of like wanting to take his name, and he's also really sad about the whole thing. And then we also see, Eve's, you know, how she's handling it, and she's grieving pretty bad. Like, she did love Rex, it was her first, and the part I really liked the most about it is how Mark handled it. Like, he didn't say, bad things about him. He didn't say, well, you're with me now. No, he really felt for Eve and understood. And I like that. It showed, maturity.
Yeah. And also, Rex was his friend.
Yeah.
He still. I mean, as annoying as Rex was, he still saw him as a friend. They came to each other's aid many times. Um, and yeah, no, it's nice to see the mutual respect. Um, and it wasn't just that. We also had the moment where Ray she's sitting further back in the cemetery, watching it all unfold, breaking down.
Yep.
So who's to say she won't come back, you know, to fight in his honor, or as needs escalate, and they need them. But then, after the funeral, we start to see all the nonsense that's coming their way.
Yep.
The Sequid possessed humans, we totally forgot about the Sequids.
Yeah. And I honestly, because we saw them in season 1 and season 2, I totally thought we were done with them, even though they kind of still hinted at them at the end of season 2 also, I think. And I honestly, I don't really care for them.
Yeah, I don't care for him. Shapesmith is going to be involved in all of that.
Yeah.
Since he's the reason they are there.
Yeah, it's still like, that's the only thing for the next season I'm not even hyped up for. And I want to dial it back a second. There is an ongoing joke in Invincible with a character that I think was only created for the show, which he popped up in season 1, 2, and now 3, which I was in the previous episode, which we forgot about until it just popped in my head, is the mummy that keeps showing up every once in a while. He needs a host, and every time he latches on to somebody, he gets thwarted. Like in the first season, I think Invincible escapes his grasp. In the second season, there's 2 chicks, and he wants a man's body because, he hates women. And then in this season, he tries to get the one of the marks from the other timeline, and he doesn't get him either. And I thought it was a funny joke. We'll probably see him again next season.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
a nice ongoing joke.
And then what? We got the Sequoids, and then what else do they show?
Battle Beast. So a group of aliens find him floating around. And then, of course, you have the technicians looking for their home planet, or a new home planet, rather.
Also, while they're looking for another home planet, because this ties into the technicians, we're getting a little upgrade to our what are they called? The Sinclair's little creations.
Yes, D.A. Sinclair's cyborgs.
Yeah, his cyborgs are getting a Viltrumite upgrade thanks to Mark killing the other Marks. Well,
Yeah.
the collective, superheroes taking down the other Marks. So we do have some more Viltrumite power on our side.
Yes. To what extent that they will be useful, we will see. There was a limited number of them. I want to say 18, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think it might be less than that because remember, the other ones are still trapped.
Yes. It might have been 18 total. I don't recall. But yes, there is a bunch of now undead Marks all suited up and ready to fight. So that will be something. Cecil is not going to sit this one out. He's going to do everything he can, as he always has, to prevent the Viltrumites from taking over. And then, of course, he's got Conquest, which I don't know how this is going to go. I mean, there's multiple ways that it can. You know, Conquest obviously at some point will wake up. They will have their discussion. How much of a discussion? We have yet to see. You know, because Conquest, even with his face all smashed up, his body is still useful, and if he's waking up, it means his brain's still intact somehow.
And the other thing is too, he's gonna be pissed.
He is,
Yeah,
but
and
he also can't see anything. He has no eyes currently, so there are some senses that are going to be removed. That we'll see how that affects him as an overpowered being.
but then again, it also comes down to this: Cecil once again lied to Mark. He told Mark, he showed him the body. He's like, "Yeah, he's dead." He wasn't dead, and they have him encased in a whole bunch of concrete in an underground facility that's rigged to blow just in case. But if Mark couldn't kill him, oh, what's that gonna do? That's the whole question. That's the $1 million question right there. But you know, I think he's gonna be weaponized by the final kind of end credit scene that we have, and that's with Darkblood, you know, talking to his ruler. That I'm assuming is his ruler trying to get him to come out of retirement, pretty much, and take over this new strong being that he sensed. And the best part about it is that ruler or whatever is played by Bruce Campbell,
Yeah,
Ash, from the Evil Dead series, and I can't wait. I can't wait to get a lot of one-liners from him because we will.
yeah, yeah. That's the one thing that I enjoy about the writing of the show is they also like to include a lot of jokes to the voice cast themselves. So maybe we'll see little jokes back and forth on him. I mean, he's done a lot of things. He's also been in a lot of Marvel stuff
Yep.
with Spider-Man. Um, yeah, that I mean, he's been in what? Now he's been in 4 movies confirmed, at least 4 Marvel movies: the Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and the second Doctor Strange movie.
Yep.
Um, all of which were done by the same director.
Yep. And now he's going for Invincible. So, and the other thing that's interesting about that is that was actually we're going to get something that wasn't in the comics, which they originally talked about putting in the comics, but they decided not to for some reason or another. But, Robert Kirkman likes to, when it comes to adapting things for the small screen rather than from his comic books, he likes to take, what if I did this differently? Or what if I did that? So it is interesting to see that he's taking other ideas he had but didn't implement, and now he is implementing them in a different medium.
Yep.
So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot to look forward to for the next season, which unfortunately we have to wait. But you know what? We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
There's so much there. There's so much to happen, and of course, with the comic books still going, with there's a lot for people to look at the comic books. Obviously, as you already mentioned, there's also Spawn, who was a part of it, which apparently he was a part of even more than just the Invincible War. So there's still a possibility of certain other characters showing up.
And it would be interesting, and it would be even great if Spawn did show up and he was voiced by Keith David, the guy who voiced him in the cartoon.
Yep.
So that'd be interesting. I don't know if they're gonna do it. They might, but we're getting kind of close to the end of this here, so I want to do well, before we predict, I want to as a whole season give our like a
Rating.
numbered rating here. So I'm gonna say 8. It was very strong. It had its weak points. With like we talked about Powerplex being stupid and some filler, but when it got going, and it got going good. So I give
Yeah,
this one an 8, a solid 8.
I also will give this an 8. Where it was bad, really, it was just one episode for me that was really bad. While the beginning of the season had me worried that they were going to pick up certain trends that are not very favorable, um, they did kind of show that that wasn't the case with later episodes. So really, with just one really bad episode, where it got good though, it got really good.
Yes, it
So
did.
I think that 8 is well deserved. 8 out of 10.
We can only hope that season 4 is going to be just as good. Hopefully, one downfall to this is that which way they kind of toyed or played with in the second season as a joke is that the animation did suffer at times, but you know, realistically compared to their other shows, the show doesn't get a lot in the way of funding, which I feel is so wrong on their part. This show deserves I mean, this show I think was 22 million they gave it. They should at least give the next season like 40. Like make it right, man. Just give us the best animation and cuz we already got the best voice cast, hands down. So
Well, maybe they can improve it by finally getting Bryan Cranston on board.
they'll just give him the paycheck and just be like, "Oh, we're not going to increase the art. We're just going to increase this guy's pay cuz we really wanted him."
Yeah, so those that don't know, Bryan Cranston has been offered a role every season so far. It has become actually a tradition at this point for them to offer Bryan Cranston of Breaking Bad fame the a role in anything, and he's turned it down nonstop every time. So maybe they will finally hook him. Now that they have Aaron Paul, it would be interesting to see both of them acting on screen opposite each other. But well, we'll see.
What if he plays his dad? Aaron Powerplex's dad.
That
You're
would
an
be something.
idiot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be wonderful actually.
Um, but I'm hoping. I know. I don't need the hope. I know season 4 will be good. It's just we gotta wait. They announced that it will. It's on track to come out next year. They already finished all the dialogue. I think what they do is they do the dialogue first and then they animate.
Yeah.
So, and I know they outsource. I think they outsource some of the animation. So maybe they can outsource all of it to different people and it gets done properly. I don't know. So that way nobody is, working really hard on doing it all. Each individual person is working as hard as they can and nothing has to suffer. But it doesn't matter. As long as the writing is good, me personally, I can deal with the animation lacking at some points. At least in the final episode, they gave us great animation.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And
All right. Predictions. What do you see coming for Invincible?
all right, so I'm almost thinking that maybe it's gonna start like season 2 did, where it kind of starts more or less with, Alan the alien and Nolan in space. Maybe try and tie up them a bit because we only kind of saw them briefly this season, and they're gonna have to go more into that, which they will. They might start out at the beginning just with, taking to see the other Viltrumite and working on a plan. I think maybe they should start there in the first episode. At least start, do half and half of the episode, half with see how Mark and everybody's doing now after that conquest battle, and then continue on with Nolan and stuff like that. I think that's gonna happen probably within the first to second episode, for sure. I do think we are for sure gonna see Angstrom come back, and we already kind of know what we have coming. I'm pretty sure the main plot, because Angstrom was the main plot threaded throughout the whole season and ended in episode 7. I think the main plot in this one that's going to probably be threaded maybe until like halfway or maybe to episode 6 will be the whole Dark Blood thing, and then we'll get a different more or less towards the end we'll probably get another Viltrumite storyline by the last 2 episodes. Do I think anybody else will die? Of course. Will it be Aaron Paul's character? Probably not.
Right. Yeah, no, I do expect more of a bloodbath. I do expect more main characters to die. In what way really depends on the setup. Um, I feel like Ray is going to go out of her way at one point to be heroic like he was. I feel like that was kind of a setup. You know, she decided to quit, and he kind of was thinking of doing the same with her. And then, that last fight, right?
Yep. And
Took it all.
also the hero in him probably I don't think would let him quit. I
Yeah,
think he really
really quit. Yeah, and I think her seeing his sense of duty will bring it out in her too,
and
especially at the right moment.
and I think she's dangerous too. Put her in a Viltrumite's head and watch her grow big.
Right. Well, we saw that that doesn't quite work with the Lizard League.
Yeah.
Um, and we can't really compare the Lizard League to Viltrumite, so they may be too strong for that. But, who knows what Rudy is brewing up technology wise? If he had a suit that, because she has a superhero suit that shrinks with her.
Yeah.
So, clothing, at least they found a way for something to shrink with her. So, if they were to build something that was more armored, that would
Ooh,
do that.
you just came up with a good idea. Maybe shrinkable like pin grenades that she can go in them, put this little grenade, you hit it, and all these spikes come out from the
Huh.
inside. She jumps out right when she hits the grenade button. Grenades are timed, like 3 second
Or,
delay.
or, or it could just simply be plant a bomb and have a detonator.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things that they could do. I mean, we will see whether bombs even really work when it comes to conquest.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling what they have planned may go off at some point. Whether it affects him or not, we have yet to see. Especially with him already being in a weakened state, it's possible that the bombs kill him. Um, but if it doesn't, then that plan is out the window. But yeah, so I see that happen. I do definitely see Nolan and Alan being a much bigger part of the next season because they were, while their scenes were awesome, it was a very contained and small story for them.
Do you think we'll see them come back to Earth?
Come back to Earth, maybe one of them. I
Okay.
don't see both of them because it looked like they were kind of gonna split off. I feel like Alan has to get everyone together. His whole thing is about searching for soldiers to help. Obviously, Nolan is the big one. So once he's got him, maybe there's just a couple of stops he has to hit before he, takes his mantle next to his boss, his mentor, who is also Viltrumite. Um, you know, which again, I feel like we're going to see more of him in the next season
Yeah.
too. He has to kind of show his face.
Ooh, you just gave me an idea. What if, what if, because like I said, maybe 7 and 8 are going to be Viltrumite related episodes. What if Viltrumites trying to figure out what the hell happened to Conquest come back to Earth, and it's more than one this time, and they're trying to figure out what happened. They're looking for answers. They see that people are still alive, so they just start laying waste on Earth. And
Or,
then,
or
Omni Man comes and he's mistaken as being a bad guy, but then Omni Man teams up and,
right. Well, also at the same time, though, will they send people? Because they sent Conquest there, yes. I don't know what he has in terms of communication. Like if he was sent there with some form of radio to communicate with them. Or if they were like, yeah, we'll send him there and then we'll show up a few months later, um, assuming that he took everything out or,
because I
took their business.
because I would think if they didn't hear from him, that's a sign that they need to go in full force.
Right, but we didn't see him with anything. He just
Yeah,
showed up as himself, as they have in the past.
yeah.
Is there maybe a spaceship floating around outside of, in Earth's orbit, which they would have to look into?
That's
Maybe
true.
that would be the thing. Or maybe he just flew there himself. And if that's the case, then they're probably going to show up, assuming everything is good to go.
I mean,
not assuming anything of it.
I'd say the only way Nolan would show up would be, in my opinion, if that happened. If they had a whole bunch of Viltrumites there. If not, I don't think he would show up at all. In fact, I think Alan would show up because he's the more friendly to the planet, and he would explain, "Hey, the whole situation. We got your father out. We're mounting a mass galactic army to take on the Viltrumites. Are you in?"
Right.
Which could be how the season ends.
It could be. It could also be on par with that future with Immortal. What he said he up and left. Well, maybe Alan shows up and says, "Hey, we got a lot to do. We're building an army. Let's go." He leaves Immortal in charge, but there's that internal struggle knowing what could happen.
And maybe that is what happened. Maybe Mark did leave with his family to try and take on the Viltrumites, and he never returned because he died.
Yeah, that's a possibility. So he has the chance to make a change.
Yep, and I believe it can happen. But yeah, that's kind of our predictions. I mean, it's crazy. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we have in store. We just know that the recording's done. They just have to do, in my opinion, I think they just have to do animating now. So I'm excited. I can't wait. But any last words, thoughts?
No. I think this next season is and should top this season. I think it unless they're planning on stretching things out to get more seasons out there. I hope they don't. I hope they are very story focused at this point.
Yeah, I think they said they have a contract for 5 seasons. I think so. That means we're on track because by the end of the season, they showed that we're about a little under halfway through the Invincible saga. So I mean, with changes, maybe we'll get 6 to 7 seasons. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they don't mess it up.
Well, there's still the movie in the works.
Yep, so I'm looking forward to that. Okay, well, guys, folks, that concludes another episode here on the Uncensored Nerds Network. Thank you guys for listening to us. You can always reach out to us on Instagram under Plothole Productions if you want us to review something specific, or if there's anything else you'd like to hear us talk about, let us know. And don't forget to check out everyone's links for merch, whatnot, eBay, and Shortbox. You can also check out the Uncensored Nerd staple shows like Random Nerdy Podcast and We Got Issues, the Comic Con Podcast, Ben Templesmith's The Squidcast, Beyond the Cape, and many more coming soon. Once again, I'm your host, Nate Slater.
And I'm Chris Sandbrook.
And we'll catch you
in the void.